family, a community, an organization, and a country are better when everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Our diversity, our equity, and our inclusion programs provide that opportunity. An opportunity is not a promise or a guarantee, and it's not an entitlement. It simply opens a door. My guest today is Jonathan McCoy. He's dedicated his life to giving people an opportunity. Let's meet him right now. Jonathan is director of the Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and an instructor of history at Mars Hill University in Weaverville, North Carolina. He's going to talk about that. He's also an experienced high school social studies teacher, which demonstrates his commitment to education. He is a skilled athletic coach, classroom management, lesson planning, and educational technology. He is a very strong public speaker, as you're going to hear in a few minutes, and he holds senior leadership positions with Madison County and the Rotary Club of Madison County, where he advocates for civil rights and social action. Jonathan, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Here now, I live in Weaverville, and Mars Hill University is actually in Mars Hill, which is 10 miles up. But we all get lumped together here in the Western North Carolina.
One
yes,
metropolis.
Yes.
Jonathan, we spoke a couple of weeks ago. You told me this intriguing story about Mars Hill, which I was in awe listening to it. So please tell the listeners what you told me.
Okay. We were talking about the history of Mars Hill, and it was founded in 1856. So just before, on the eve of the Civil War. The two things, it was founded by Baptists because most of the teachers in the area that were teaching young people were Methodists. And so the parents were scared that their children would convert to become Methodists. They would leave the Baptist church. So they decided that they would build Mars Hill. And in that era, antebellum era, most of the people who had means, had money, were also slave owners. Again, especially here in North Carolina, here in the South. And so the trustees that came together to build Mars Hill were slave owners. And the main trustee, Mr. Anderson, had a man that he owned, Joseph Anderson. And Joseph Anderson was a well-known brick mason of not just Mars Hill area, but of the Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee. In this region, Joseph Anderson was renowned for his brick mason skills. And so as they had the first building built, Mars Hill, Joseph Anderson worked with the contractors, and we understand the contractors probably also had enslaved labor. And so the first building was built. At the completion of the first building, the trustees of Mars Hill did not have enough money to pay the contractors that they had do the work. And so a lien was put on the trustees. And so the sheriff was brought by the contractors to collect on that lien. And so the most valuable property amongst the trustees was Joseph Anderson. Because again, as a slave person, he was seen as property. And so he was taken by the sheriff, and at this time it was Buncombe County. It was in Mars Hill was incorporated with Buncombe County, and they basically took Joseph Anderson to jail and held him in captivity, and were about to sell him to pay off the lien. And the trustees got together and raised enough money to pay the lien and get Joseph Anderson back. Now, again, it was not to free Joseph Anderson. Joseph Anderson did not get freedom until after the Civil War, but it was a way for Anderson to get his property back, again, most valuable. And so Mars Hill holds a distinction in Ripley's Believe It or Not as the only school that we know in the United States that a person was actually held in bond for the cost of building it. Building the first building on the university that this man was held. Now, other schools were built with slave labor and built with money from slave sales, but this person was held in bondage for the building. And as the story continues, his great-great-great-granddaughter, Orlean Simmons, as I say, you know, the Lord has his way of working. Orleans Simmons was Mars Hill's first African American student in 1961. She integrated Mars Hill. So a direct descendant of Joseph Anderson actually did integrate Mars Hill, and then in 2022, Orleans Simmons was awarded an honorary doctorate from Mars Hill. And so Joseph Anderson is buried on Mars Hill's property. In fact, our residence hall, a large portion is on a hill. We used to call it Men's Hill, but it's on Joseph Anderson Drive, and his grave is there. And Dr. Simmons went and took a picture in her regalia with her honorary doctorate diploma there at his grave. There are Joseph Memorial sign talking about and saying how, you know, I did it, Granddaddy. You see that we've come, and this whole full circle that this person held in bond in his descendant. And a number of her children, three of her children have graduated from Mars Hill and things. So you had this connection, and actually Mars Hill has incorporated the Anderson family. Joseph Anderson family has been for a number of years on our wall of founders. It's seen as a founding family of Mars Hill University. So from this dark beginning, you see some cracks of light, but there's that ironic story and unique story of Mars Hill that we try to tell again, which goes into why I have this position of, you know, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, what is the diverse ways that we get here and go forward, but also the diverse experiences and how they shape us.
Exactly. It was 105 years before an African American student came to Mars Hill. Wow.
And it just happened. She did not purposely try to go to integrate Mars Hill. She lived in Asheville, but that was one of the places she applied, and she first was denied because she was Black. And she said that then what happened was somebody realized kind of who she was, and it was also this time that civil rights was kind of moving, and was kind of like, well, wait a minute, what are we doing? This, you know, now she did not have it easy here. Again, it's a school in the South, but she said, you know, I didn't purposely go, I'm going to break the color barrier at Mars Hill, but it was something that when they offered her a chance to come after denying her, she said yes, that's where she wanted to go. She had always wanted to go to Mars Hill, and she was sad when she first was denied, and then, you know, happy to have that opportunity.
So being the first person of color and a woman, what was that like? What did she endure? Was it what we saw on TV in Mississippi and Alabama?
In some ways, she was isolated. Mars Hill always been, even in its founding, was co-educational, but of course, we know in the 1850s and 60s into the early 20th century, really very rare for women to come to Mars Hill. That didn't really start until more into the 1900s. But when she was here, most of the students, she would say probably about 99% of the students would not talk to her, have anything to do with her. She had a room at one of the first floors of the residence hall, but you know, there was no air conditioning, things like that. So she would have her window open, and people would gather outside her window and would talk to one another loud enough for her to hear, like, you know, maybe we need to run her out, you know, maybe we need to string her up, maybe. So there was always a concern by like staff and faculty and administration, you know, should we, you know, how are we going to keep her safe? But she said a lot of people didn't talk to her. There were a few people that did, and then they would be ostracized. So it was almost anybody that was already seen on the outskirts of the community, they would talk to her. But she made it through. But she said, yeah, but it was, you know, a lot of times she maybe go to the dining hall and eat by herself and things like that. And she said, you know, teachers would call on her in class, but you know, people wouldn't want to study with her, wouldn't want to walk with her to anything else and things. So it was definitely not for the faint of heart. And then, you know, you have to think about it. This is a person just out of high school, but she said one thing that helped her, she was part of A-Score, which is in Asheville, was a high school movement that was inspired by Dr. King's work in Montgomery and things. And so they in high school, they went on to start doing civil rights work as high school students. So as in high school, she had been part of, you know, starting sit-ins and protesting of trying to bring a racial change in Asheville. So she said that helped her, you know, as she came to Mars Hill. She said she had this training, she had this participation, so she had this stamina to take this on.
Wow, that's incredible. Now you enrolled in 1980. You were a student athlete. And
Yes,
what was the
I
environment
did.
like when you got there?
So I came in 1987. I was 17 years old. I'm October baby, so I didn't turn 18 until I already had started at Mars Hill. I always remember, you know, registering for the draft, sitting in my room filling out that card in October. But it was unique. Mars Hill, probably at that time there were about 3% of the student population was probably African American. Most students, even now here at Mars Hill, if you're a student of color, usually you're coming because of athletics. That's the big draw. And that was what had pulled me to Mars Hill. Yes, I earned a football scholarship. That's what pulled me from Durham. And most of the my fellow students, we came, we were, at that time, it was predominantly male that came. At the time, as a freshman, we might have had 15 African American women on campus as students, and then probably about 85 of us were guys that were either football and basketball. So, you know, so even as Vince, you think 15 young ladies, you know, and 85 guys try to compete, you know, that was all, we always used to laugh about that. But it was different, you know. Mars Hill, I came from Durham, North Carolina, so that's over 250 miles away, so it was 4.5 hour drive. When I first came on my first recruitment visit here, I came and I was like, you know, I'm not coming to this place because it's out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's, you know, fall off the edge of the earth and nobody know what happens to you. I mean, we're right here in the Blue Ridge, right on the edge of Blue Ridge Parkway in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I mean, it's in the heart of the mountains. It's a rural area, and being walking, we have a highway that kind of goes through the edge of our campus, but you had to walk across it to get to the main park, 213. And you know, nowadays I tell students nowadays they have it easy because they have crosswalks. Back then you just had to take it, you know, you had to go. And but you had to be conscious and even today we talk about as African American student, cars wouldn't stop for you. And sometimes they would speed up. You know, even today, you can be at the crosswalk and you can see it. Our students of color realize that even as they get to the crosswalk, the best way to cross is with a white student, because you can get to the crosswalk and stand there for a while, because though there's a crosswalk, though there's a sign that says, you know, some people drive through and they'll drive through looking at you and everything. But then when they see a white student, especially a white female student, they'll stop. So that's hey, you see a white female student about to cross, and you speed up so you can walk across there, make sure. But there were things, you know, you didn't, when I was here, you didn't walk down that road 213 at night or as it was getting dark, because again, somebody might throw a bottle at you and things like that. Playing football, I played offensive line, and we would meet, or our practice area was right next to a street that went up to the elementary school. And two things you knew: you wanted to get down to the gym before having to cross the street, and you didn't want to go out early waiting for practice, because it was timed up when the buses were coming by. If you if you were crossing the street or if you were outside waiting for practice in our area, and it was again the street where the buses went by, more than likely, kids were going to yell the N-word out at you as the buses went by.
Mm-hmm.
And so, did you want to go through that? And so that was, that was a given, that was common. So there were, the racial reality, yes, of coming here, but there the racial reality that not everybody welcomed you, not everybody wanted you there, and not everybody understood how you were a fellow human being. And again, that goes into this whole idea that somehow by your color or all these other marks or categories makes you different or less. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a reality. There had been talk one year the Klan had applied to march in Mars Hill. They got denied. I think I told you about Mars Hill's history in the early 70s. Through the early 70s, Mars Hill used to play Dixie
Right.
at sporting events, basketball games, football games, and they would play Dixie, and there'd be people in the crowd that would wave the Confederate flag. And so in the early 70s, some of the black basketball players approached President Bentley, who was president of the university or college then, he was president when I was here, and said that they felt it offensive. Here we are trying to play, and they're playing Dixie and waving this Confederate flag. And so President Bentley, right then and there, said, "Okay, we're going to outlaw. We're going to stop that." He says, "If this is causing hurt, this is not what we're going to do. I'm not going to take it to the trustees. We're not going to debate it. This is something that's wrong. It's hurting our students, and we're going to put an end to it right then and there." And if you talk to any of those students, those alumni from that early 70s when President Bentley did that, they hold him in higher esteem because he stepped in and said, "I heard you. We're going to make this right because there's nothing right for you to be at this place and feel harm from this place, and especially
Exactly.
something that we could change." That was so experience.
Wow. So he was way ahead of his time.
Yes.
Was. Wow. Now we're starting to see growth, and things are starting in your role you're in. You're starting to see some changes. Now, some people, Jonathan, this makes me crazy. Some people still think that DEI and affirmative action programs are simply about race. And you had a great theory on this. Show the world why it's not just a race issue.
Right. I really talk about this. One thing I think I'm purposeful in trying with my conversations to get people to understand the disingenuous linkage that people have put, DEI, race, all of this race, all of this, they're trying to bring up this divisiveness of race, but that takes away the understanding what diversity really is. If you don't have
Exactly.
DEI, then you don't believe in financial aid. Financial aid is providing money so people will have an opportunity at higher ed. So if you had financial aid when you went to school, or if you're a parent and your child is filling out that FAFSA so they can have financial aid and go to school, that's DEI. That's a diversity of income, saying that because you might not have the income to pay for that school, we're going to provide a means to. So if you don't believe in DEI, you don't believe in financial aid. If you don't believe in DEI, you don't believe in religious diversity. Mars Hill was founded by Baptists, so if you don't believe in DEI, you just believe in only Baptists should be able to come here. Well, we have students who are Methodist, Lutheran, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, Catholic, across the board. So you're saying, well, they shouldn't be allowed, just Baptists. So you don't believe in other religions, or at least the freedom of religion, which again is what our nation stands for. If you don't believe in DEI, then you don't believe in international students, foreign exchange students. Students from another country should not be allowed to come and study here, and also our students from America shouldn't be allowed to go study abroad, because that's a diversity. That's a diversity of people and beliefs and cultures, ethnicity. You don't want that because you don't believe in DEI. And again, that affects Mars Hill. Mars Hill has all 22 different sports. We have a large number of international students. We have a large number. If we didn't have financial aid, most of our students wouldn't be able to come in. race again. Now, 30% of our students now are African American or of another race or ethnicity. We have Asian American Pacific Islanders. We have Native Americans. So we have Latino and Latina students. So we're going to do away with them because you don't believe in DEI. You don't believe in DEI, so we shouldn't have anybody that is dealing with a disability, be it in a wheelchair, be it on crutches, be it sight impairment, be it neurodiverse. We have students that have individualized education plans because they learn differently. They need extra time on the test. They need maybe a read aloud. They need they might have dyslexia or something else. DEI accounts for all that for them to have a chance at education. You don't believe in DEI, so we can't allow those students to come in. The list can go on and on of the diversity of humanity. And so when people say, oh, well, do away with DEI because it's racial, well, no, that's disingenuous. What you're saying is do away with all these people and only allow people like me. But even when you say people like you, most of the time you're not realizing the diversity you have. Because if I say, oh, well, we need to do away with DEI unless it looks like me, but does that mean that they have to wear glasses? What looks if they have contacts with it? Facial hair, bald, there is diversity to our existence. And so what DEI is really about is recognizing that and saying that everybody should have this opportunity and that opportunity should be limited. And that is the crux of it. And so that's why it's so frustrating when people want to, oh, well, no, it's just this. Well, no, it's not. And that's why I say it's disingenuous.
Exactly.
So
Exactly
that's
right. It's I talk to some people and they'll say that and they'll say, what about veterans? That's a specialty group.
Right. That's why.
What about LGBTQ? That's a specialty group.
Yeah.
Everyone is different. Everyone is different. And that's what makes us better as an organization, as a country. The other thing you told me, Jonathan, was equality or equity, excuse me. Equity is different than equal.
Right.
Expand on it.
We were talking, and I was saying again, as you look at the diversity of it, again, as you're saying, this diversity. We traditionally Mars Hill has been a school that students came right from high school, but now we're getting, like you said, Frederick. Now we're getting people who are coming back to school. Their parents, their child care, also we're dealing with that. We're getting students who are coming out of community colleges and things like that are coming. That's part of this. And so the equity is understanding that everyone is, their pathway to Mars Hill is different. Their journey here has come a different way. And so I say it's like saying, okay, well, we're going to have disabled parking. We're giving parking that's specific for disabled people. See, we're doing DEI, yes, but if you look at disabled parking and then the way into the building, most of the time you see the sidewalk has a dip in it, so that if the person's disabled and using a wheelchair, they can actually go up. If you want equality, hey, okay, we gave them parking, but here's the curb. There's no dip. Equality is, hey, everybody's got a dip. Equity is, we understand that some people have trouble without the dip, so we put one in so they will have access. They will be able to be included. And so equity includes. It's just like saying again, if somebody's in a wheelchair and you say, okay, well, we're going to make all the resources available to everybody, but we're going to have it at the height of 6 feet. So most people are standing up, they can grab it. Well, what if that person's in a wheelchair? It's 6 feet, I can't reach up that high. Well, it's equal. We've made the resources available equally to everybody, but it's not equitable because it's not accessible for everyone. Or what is it? And again, it comes into not only that, because the diversity then changes. Ageism, that's ableism, but ageism, the workforce is getting older. So there was always this movie that came on when I was when I was younger. It was called Logan's Run. And
Yep.
it dealt with the society that you got to an age and basically you were killed off. You only lived to a certain age. I think it might have been like 35 or something like that. And then he would die. And so Logan became that age and he went on the run because he wanted to live. You know, there was well, age is the same way. Do we employ people and say, oh, you can only work here until you're 40, then you have to go? Well, no, you have an older workforce, but also younger workforce. So do you make it, you know, so yes, I played football. I'm not as spry as I used to be. So sometimes walking upstairs, I do walk upstairs, but sometimes, you know, that hip might be hurting, so I might need to use the elevator, things like that. You know, those things, you know, what's written on, we're going to use the small print or the big print. You know, why is there braille in elevators? You know, why do they have a bell? You know, now you have crosswalks. When I was working in Raleigh last, I was at a high school in Broughton. It was right downtown, and right next to it was a shopping center. It used to be called Cameron Village, and I can't think of what they renamed it to. But they installed crosswalks that talked, and so there was the Moorhead School for the Blind, and they would bring the students there to teach them how to walk with their service dogs, how to do the crosswalk, how to hear, okay, you can walk now, don't walk in this whole time, because are you going to take that assets away? Oh, well, people can't see, so now they can't get out and be independent. That's all DEI. And that's all also, though, understand that equity and equality are different. You know, oh, we're all equal. We all want an equal opportunity, but the equity, we have different needs to have a chance at that opportunity, to have access to that opportunity. And so, but people want to roll, they want to say, well, it's diversity, equality, and well, no, equality is not going to allow inclusion. Equity allows the inclusion because you recognize the uniqueness of each individual and you're trying to give them the access so they can be included to have those opportunities.
I love that answer, that equity allows inclusion. I love that answer. Now, Jonathan, we're in an election year. We're hearing all kinds of stuff here. That opportunity and advancement should only be based on merit. And you tell me this is flawed. Explain this.
I explain, I've had a couple of people, you know, tell me, so you don't believe in merit? I said, well, first of all, we have to be realistic and we have to be honest. And so there is a typical habit, habitual, I'm gonna say typical, a habitual process that people will do of not being honest when we look at this. You can have merit if everybody starts at an equal point. If you look and you understand, you're realistic and you're honest about our society, we know that there's different starting points for everybody. Women did not get a chance to vote till 1920. They could not get a credit card on their own till 1970. There's still restrictions on what they can and can't do on their body. So to say, well, a woman just needs to work hard, well, their starting point is at a different point than a white man from a family that has a income of $250,000, which is a different starting point for a white man whose family has a net income of $50,000, which is different than a black family that, you know, is already under that with probably so 40. So there's a different starting point, and just say, oh, well, you know, everybody just has to work harder. Well, again, you're saying that everybody has the same opportunities when we already know that if you come from a rural school, there's a tendency by people to say, oh, you're coming from a rural school, so you haven't been exposed to all the things that will make you well educated, makes you well versed. Just because you're coming from this rural area doesn't mean it's true. We just have this viewpoint we have of people. So they're already starting with a chip because they could have came from a school that is producing Nobel Prize winners, but coming from Madison County here in Mars Hill, which, you know, it's this small, tiny place. So this idea of merit, everybody just works hard and everybody's equal, that's not true. Because the reality isn't that way. You have people that are working hard and just say, oh well, everybody just get why do we then tell everybody the best thing you need to do to move forward in the job is the network? Why do people have join fraternities and sororities? Why does it matter that hey, I played football here and we were on the championship team? Because those are all points that you can make with somebody that also, oh well, hey, yeah, I'm in the same fraternity and yeah, I played football too, maybe on the same team, but I know that. And so that networking, oh hey, you know so and so. Yeah, that networking then gives you the edge over the same competition. That's why you name drop. That's why you have the start. That's why you make those connections. So to say, oh well, everybody just works hard, they have the same opportunity. Well, then why are we networking? Why why are we joining the fraternity and all these things? And so the starting points where you come from, is influenced to the opportunities that you offer. People, hey, and that's what we talk about here at Mars Hill because we said our job, we have to, reason DEI is important is we want our students to be able to know how to work with a diverse group, to get that experience while they're here at Mars Hill. So when they go into that job interview and other people in that pool is somebody that graduated from Harvard or from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill or, University of Tennessee. And they're like, well, I'm coming from Mars Hill, this small little division 2. I can compete with them because I can go into that employer and say, I know how to work with a diverse group. Not only do I know about it, that's what I've been doing for the time I was at Mars Hill in the different programming and things that I have developed the skill. I just didn't get the skill or hear about the skill. I worked on developing the skill. And that's important because now in the 21st century, employers realize and recognize that they're going to have a diverse team and that that their new generation that they're hiring wants to be in places that understands their diversity. They want to be in a place that understands them. So if employer that says, we had a coach when I was here. He grew up in an era that men did not wear earrings. If they wore earrings, that was a problem.
Right.
And so we, as recruits would come in, we would hear back from those players that coming back, we would take them around and come out, coach was staring at me in my earring and, I just felt uncomfortable. I'm not going to come here and things like that. And so as players, we went to the coach and said, you have to understand, wearing an earring in this new generation does not mean the same thing as you. And if you're going to judge people on that, then understand what kind of program you're going to have, what you're limiting yourself, what you're handicapped. Same thing, with hair. I was going to school at a time where guys were starting getting dreadlocks, and they were being told, don't get dreadlocks in your hair because people won't hire you. Same thing, don't have tattoos, people won't hire you. Don't have, because it was seen as they're culturally wrong. There's something, something wrong about them. We don't want those people. But now in this generation, that is what those places people are looking for. I'm looking for a place where my tattoos are going to be welcome, where my dreads are going to be welcome, where this. And so as our Mars Hill students go in and try to get these jobs, they want to let those employers know, hey, I know how to work with people like that. I don't have a hang with people. I know that's what we're going to have here and how that's an asset to the production of your company, and that's what you want. And because it doesn't matter, that person might graduate at Harvard, but have they been working in diversity for the time they were at Harvard, unlike us here at Mars Hill been doing it. So I might think, oh man, this small school, but I'm just as competitive as that name dropped Harvard because I got the skills that the employer wants so that their business can thrive. And
Exactly.
that's the important, because that's not what's going to, that's again going disingenuous of DEI. People, oh, we got to do away with it. The world isn't going to change. That's what has changed. We're not getting away from DEI. It's becoming more diverse.
Or more. Exactly. Exactly right. I also hear affirmative action getting an unfair advantage. And I've had some conversations with somebody, I won't name the school he was from, but he said, well, this is not fair. And I said, your parents went to this college, didn't they? And he said, yeah. He says, they donate to the college, didn't they? I said, yeah. And he goes, you're considered legacy, aren't you? And he goes, well, I earned that. And I said, how? How
Right,
did you earn that?
right. Well, and so there's this idea there, for people talk about Dr. King's dream. Well, people have this
Yes.
dream um, uh, um, of this um, of this reality, this dream of this reality that everybody is like you said, just that if we allow something like affirmative action, if we allow something, um, if you have a problem with affirmative action, then you have a problem with college athletics. You have a problem with academic scholarships. You have a problem with scholarships across the board because that's also allowing certain groups or people with certain talents in. If you want to say, well, affirmative action is all about race or gender, well, athletics is about athletic ability. Hey, if you're not a football player, then and so that's what I remember we were talking about it. I said that is the genie that has been unleashed in the bottle that I don't think people realize. Yo, we do away with affirmative action. Bigger schools all of a sudden say, oh, okay, well, wait a minute, there's a problem because now somebody's going to come and sue us and say, it's not fair that that football player got a scholarship and I don't play football and I didn't get it. Why is he getting money? I'm not. And so all of a sudden you're going to have these suits and all of a sudden you're not going to have, and I'm in North Carolina where basketball is king. All of a sudden you don't have, anybody going into March Madness. And all of a sudden you don't have anybody going to the bowl games and everything else. And so that's why you saw all these big schools are starting to do what? They're starting to say, okay, well now any student that applies that comes from a family that makes under $70,000, they can come here for free. Why? Because it takes away that problem. But it hurts smaller schools because Marcel can't afford to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't afford it, but that's how these big schools are trying to get around it because now all some people, wait a minute, it's not this, and that then goes back to the opportunity, and so a lot of people want a guarantee. We see it all the time come the time of application. Well, I was in AP class, I was in this class, I was, president student body, all this. I should be able to have my pick. No, the whole idea is you did all that for a better chance, but it wasn't a guarantee. And so
Yeah.
when you have something like affirmative action or other scholarships, it seems like you're losing that guarantee. I'm losing out. They're taking it away. Taking away from what? Because at the school with affirmative action, it's overrun with, people of color. It's overrun with, even when when you look at it in the numbers, who are they taking it away from? And anyway, the whole idea is that it's about people who already meet the criteria, but because they might have been from a rural area, that might have been from the inner city or something else, they were being ignored. Like we just talked about earlier, this social stigma that we have. Oh, well, they're from here, they don't know, but they have all the credentials, but we won't look at them because they're from over here, or they look like this, or they believe like that, or they identify this way. What the whole process was, no, take away that barrier, say, here are people who are qualified that you weren't looking at because they were this race or this religion or this sexual orientation. You need to look at them and give them the same opportunity that you were denying them because of that social stigma. But now that's, oh, wait a minute, that means I'm losing out. Losing out from what? So you had a guaranteed seat that was taken away? Well, no. So you didn't have a guarantee, but your whole attitude is that you had a guarantee and somebody took it away. So
Yes.
so you believe this fairy tale, and you want the fairy tale to continue, and so you're mad that if we talk about the reality, you have to become you have to realize that you were believing a fairy tale and not not the truth.
Exactly
And so
right.
what people want to do is they want to hold on to the fairy tale. Don't tell me the truth. Lie to me. That's what it is. This is whole is we got to believe in this. And that's why you see this. Oh, we're not we're not a racist nation. We're not a sexist nation. We're not a homophobic race. We're not really. And show me when we haven't been. Show me when we weren't even that way in colonial times. I was just teaching to my class the other day about how Ben Franklin wrote the address about editorial about German immigrants coming to Pennsylvania when it was still a colony. He wrote a letter to the king, said, "Why are we having established an English colony and allowing German people to come in here? Because they're going to Germanize us instead of us anglicizing them." That's Benjamin Franklin talking about German immigrants even before we became a nation. So this whole idea that if we let too many of these folks in, they're going to change us, they're going to take away our opportunity, that's the fairy tale. The
Exactly.
reality is, no, they're not. No, we're not. The reality is supposed to be, if we're going to be a place where everyone has an opportunity, where we believe that everyone should have an opportunity, then it has to be everyone and not certain ones. But you see this resistance to that reality. I really believe in the fairy tale. And so then when that's put out, and when you're confronted with it, then we have to start tap dancing and spin. Oh no, we're not that way. Oh, that's them, not me. Well, if we're silent about it, then it's us. You know, it could be them doing it, but if you're not saying or fighting against it, then it's us. Then you're actually, condoning it, which you believe. So that's that thing with the affirmative action and all these things. Well, no, it's they're stealing. They're stealing from what? From who? How?
Right.
And again, you're picking and choosing because you sure ain't saying that when I see you on the jumbotron, jumping up and down because you just won the national championship, and those players that don't look like you, believe like you, are the ones that were on the court that won it for you. Oh, now you
That's,
love them. But
that's
then,
right.
but as soon as the season's over, now you hate them.
Exactly. Exactly. Now you do a great deal of work in the community. Now you're very heavily involved. So as you started to reach out into the community, what was the first step? It had to be challenging. What did you do?
Well, I think the main step has been that people know that Mars Hill's here, and so it's creating this bridge, creating this avenue that Mars Hill's part of the community, and how can we work together to
Mhm.
help one another? Students come to Mars Hill. They arrive in August. They leave in May. They do that for 4 to 5 years. They're Mars Hill residents. They're Madison County residents. Because out of the 12 months of the year, you would say, really look at it, 10 months they live here. So they need to understand the community's ideas, the community's visions, the community wants, and work to be part of that. But the community also needs to understand that they're part of how do we help them because they're a part of it. And so there's always been this reach out to how do we collaborate? How do we make sure people understand that this is what community is all about? It's not transient. And even if it was transient, this person was coming in and out. This shared space, we share a time and space. Me and you are sharing a time and space right now. We are a community. It might be, oh, well, you're only together for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 hours,
Mhm.
10 days, 10 years. But the time that we share is a community. So how do we share this time and space together better? And how do we recognize each other's wants and needs and desires and work to help make them, happen as best we can. We're not going to make it 100%, but how can we go about doing that? And get close to it. And so that's really been the reach out of how do we unfold that? How do we as they talk about, how do we make life a Venn diagram, the overlap, and when you start looking at your life and all that, our whole life is a Venn diagram. There's all these overlapping things, and how do we recognize that and work to enhance that because that's the reality. And so there's hesitance because again, like we have about 900 students on campus, and then about 200 250 that might be commuters don't live or whatever. But all of a sudden, you're getting 900 people come pouring into this town. All this diverse, international. You know, there are people that live here. That wait a minute, what's going on? How do you fight that fear, that angst, and everything else? But also, you get people. Like I said, how do I convince if I'm a coach, and our soccer coach, say, how am I convincing these Scottish parents to allow their Scottish child to come across the Atlantic and come to the small little school in the mountains of North Carolina, when what they're seeing on TV of America and everything that's going on and what they might have heard about this, they'll say, well, man, they're going to be safe. And not just in Scotland or an international place, out of Atlanta or Miami or New York, we're getting those students, or even right down the road in Asheville. You know, how, because we say, well, they're going to come here and we're going to make them part of our community. Well, what does that community really, what does that mean? And how do we do that? But then understand people here in Mars Hill and Madison County, Buncombe County, Western North Carolina, and Eastern Tennessee, and all that, understand they're also part of your community. Because when they come off the campus of Mars Hill and they go into Weaverville to the Walmart, you know, and they don't have a Mars Hill shirt, they're just, you know, they're just wearing unidentified clothes. People see, understand that there's this diversity that's here. How are they going to be welcome? How do they feel protected? And so that's the thing that has to be looked at. So that has to be, you know, worked on with these different groups as they recognize it. How do we help our communities grow and understand the realities of the 21st century? You know, the realities of being united. And you know, again, we're going to be united. So how do we gain that union, and then how do we make that union stronger?
Exactly. You told me the conversations are geared for acceptance, not necessarily understanding, because you may never understand
Right.
what it's like to be a Black minority woman, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about acceptance. Is that correct?
Right. It's about, you know, there is a developing term, um, emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And it's being basically is just is being aware of the diversity that people have and understanding that their experiences aren't the same as yours. And that should help guide your interactions. Like I talk about with my wife. If I said to my wife, you know, bras aren't uncomfortable. They all they do, bras help with you know, support, and they're not uncomfortable at all. And I don't know why people say that, because that's not real. My wife will look at me like I'm crazy. Not that I know if her bra is uncomfortable or not, but be like, well, when have you wore a bra? When have you gone bra shopping? Well, I haven't, but you know, I've been around people who've worn bras and they haven't seemed uncomfortable. So, you know, emotional intelligence understand, wait a minute, what do I know and don't know? What am I supposed to know? What do I might need to ask? You know, hey, can you inform me? What can be realistic understanding if I look at the history of bras and who developed was developed by a man? If you look at some of those, you know, if you look at some of those bras from the 50s, sure, it looks like they were uncomfortable, and it has to, you know, this whole idea of understanding the diverse experience that people have, then I'll be intelligent enough to know, okay, how do I be empathetic, sympathetic? How do I be understanding? How do I, as people say now, give grace, give room to say, okay, I don't know everything. And even if I have that opinion, maybe I need to keep that opinion to myself, because I might find out my opinion is wrong, and actually be open to listening. And so accepting the differences, accepting the different points of, you know, one thing that we work on hard in this, you know, in this campus is that where Mars Hill is located, because of the diversity comes in here, and because a lot of people see that, oh, universities are liberal. Mars Hill, a Baptist school, is not liberal, it's not conservative, it's moderate, but we have mixed. But we're in a congressional district that is very, very red. Mars Hill is located where Mark Meadows was the congressman, and then Madison Cawthorn, the congressman who was in the wheelchair that everybody's very, very red, very conservative. Well, again, you're bringing in a whole lot of diversity. You're bringing in some people who, that are quote unquote liberal or progressive. How do we have conversations of trying to accept different people's point of view. Might not agree about it, you know, but accept, okay, this is why you feel this way. This is why I feel that way. We might not agree, but I can see why you're feeling this way. Let's talk about, you know, is there a way to change, but also not be about, well, I gotta change you. You're wrong. I don't agree with that. I might really think that's wrong, but also, you know, as long as you're not trying to cause me harm or try to create harm for others, hey, you know, you're not saying we gotta pick up a weapon and go, you know, kill people. You are entitled to opinion. Now, again, is it harmful? Are you saying something that's harmful? Is, you know, racist, homophobic, and things like that? Now, wait a minute. You know, understand. We can really need to have a talk about this, about trauma. You don't have the right to cause trauma to somebody, but I need to also accept that you might have a different point of view if you're coming from, you know, this background compared to my background. I have a different background than a lot of people. My father was one of the first of three African American chaplains in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and so I grew up around prisons. You know, we went into the institutions and had service. You know, we were amongst the men. So I have this understanding of what it means to be incarcerated and the trauma that what caused you to be incarcerated, but also the life that goes on as you're incarcerated and things. So I have a different, that background shapes who I am. But that's different than somebody else who might have grown up on a farm or even grew up in a city. So that my emotional intelligence is recognizing those differences. And so as I recognize it, as we interact, keeping that in mind. So even as I say something, I might say, well, hey, as I'm saying this, I need to watch what I'm saying because, you know, I can't remember if we talked about this, right? But um, going on 9 years ago, I had bariatric surgery. So at the time I had surgery, I was 560 pounds. So I've lost over 320 pounds. So, but my emotional intelligence tells me as I talk with somebody and we talk about weight and size and how people react to that, and you know, being aware of my experience, that shapes how I talk with folks. It shapes how I hear folks and how I try to guide in conversations. The emotional intelligence is also, you know, being aware of my background might be different and my experiences are different, but how that should shape my interactions with other people, but also trying to get them to be aware of their differences and how it should shape their interactions with me.
Exactly. You hit a point where um, now you can have a conversation, even if someone says something and they meant no harm by it. You can now at least say, you know, I know you didn't mean any harm with that, but did you consider this?
Right,
And you can have a dialogue as opposed to a confrontation.
right, right. That's the thing. I remember I had a professor here, Dr. Lindbergh, and he says, you know, he was talking about abortion rights. He goes, if you ever seen, um, because you have never seen a discussion on abortion rights. You've seen arguments. He
Yes.
says, either side is yelling at the other. This is what I
Yes.
believe, and you're wrong. He says, he says, you never see, okay, let's discuss. We don't agree, but let's discuss and see. He says that's a lot of times the problems in conversations, and that's why I talk about a lot of times with dealing with of having hard conversations. I said the first thing you have to decide: are you going to have a conversation or are you going to have an argument? You know, a conversation might mean yes. I feel uncomfortable. I might get upset, but we're again at the end. The reason people don't want to have hard conversations because the conversation, there's no, again, it goes back, there's no guarantee. There's no resolutional guarantee. We're going to talk and we're going to come to an understanding and agree. No, we can talk and we still disagree and still haven't resolved anything. People don't want that. They want, boom, you know, there's going to be a solution. And, you know, and it doesn't happen. So they avoid having hard conversations. So then we avoid dealing with those hard topics. You know, we can have hard arguments because I know I'm not going to change you. So I'm just yelling at you and I'm venting, but you're not changing me and I'm not changing you. So there was no expectation of a solution. In the conversation, there's like, oh, well, we talk, you know, you think about it, when people say, well, I thought we were gonna do this. We talked about it, like, since we talked about it, we came to agreement. It's like, well, no, we just talked about it. We had a conversation. I mean, and so when people realize that's not that guaranteed, well, I don't want to have that because I want to guarantee that we talk about it. There's going to be a solution, and usually we want the solution in my favor. So, so that's why I'd rather not talk about it. But if we never talk about it, we never move forward. So the conversation has to be that it's not a one-off. Conversations might, be, multiple, it's gonna be multiple times, multiple days, months. It's a journey
Exactly.
trying to find that common point where we can then move together. But it's a journey, and that is a reluctance. And so then that then shapes decisions of policy, decisions of access and opportunity, because again, you have to have conversations about it to change the goal and to set the goal. And I would just rather boom, and so therefore, if you avoid the conversation, then the goals are never where they need to be, and there's never a process put in there to actually reach it in a way that is progressive and progressive for all parties, that all parties are gaining something.
You're exactly right. This is incredible. Jonathan, after people see this, they're going to want to get a hold of you. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, the easiest way is email me at Mars Hill. You can come to our website, you'll see Mars Hill, but it's Jonathan _ McCoy. So I'm JONATHAN. As my aunt used to say, I'm Joe Nathan. Jonathan _ then McCoy MCCOY at mhu.edu. So my email is the easiest way. Also, if you when you come to the Mars Hill website, you'll see down the bottom left, you'll see the Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and you can click that, and that has my contact, and that has my the office number. And so I get reports on. Whoever calls my office number leaves a message, I get a report on my cell phone also. So I'll see it, and then I'll be able to get back. So and that number for my office is 828-689-1508. And so that's the office number for the Center for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Marcel. Again, 828.
I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, when you contact him, he gets back to you quickly. And as you've heard for the last close to an hour here, he is intriguing speaker and somebody you need to know. You need to know this man. Now, as I said, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Jonathan again for showing us that we're all better when everybody has an opportunity to improve their position. Now, you can see this show on my podcast, which is called Life Altering Events. You can see it on my YouTube channel on Parade Deck, and I'll send links to Jonathan, and he'll post it wherever he posts things in his world. If you use the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Now, let me leave you with this, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Jonathan showed us where many, many of those rocks are.